Good morning. This is the regular open meeting of the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission on Thursday, November 13. And we'll go ahead and get started with our meeting with a roll call.
Commissioner Nyberg?
Present.
Commissioner Aguilar?
Present.
Commissioner O'Connell?
Present.
All commissioners are here and you have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
All right. And next, the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, as the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Commissioners, we have a agenda before us, and I know that there is one change that I want to suggest. We had an employee of the month presentation at the last meeting, and the item is on today's agenda as well. So don't want to shortchange our current employee of the month. So I think we need to remove that item. Are there any other suggested changes?
I move we adopt the agenda with that change.
And I'll second. And we'll do just a voice vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so we'll move forward then with the revised agenda. For announcements, I have a few that I wanted to share. For the proposed acquisition of New Mexico Gas Company, the public hearing for that is ongoing as of this morning. So we're entering day 8 of that. And the docket number for that case, once again, is 24266 UT. And you can follow that on YouTube and find the link on our website. There's a public hearing for PNM's grid modernization review, which begins on November 19, and that's in docket 2549 UT. Again, that'll be streamed on YouTube. 2 more announcements. Our next open meeting is going to be held on Tuesday, November 25. So I had to move that because of the Thanksgiving holiday. So that'll be here again at the Wendell Chino building. And also will be hybrid. So we'll be in person and you can stream it on YouTube. And one last announcement, the PRC seminar for the CLE event for attorneys to be able to get their CLEs and also open to other people, will be on December 1 and 2. And the registration for that is open already on our website, and the agenda will be posted tomorrow. So you don't have to be an attorney to come. If you are an attorney, you can come get your credits. Anybody else is welcome to register. It'll be 2 full days of valuable discussion about regulation, and I think the title is Regulating Utilities for the Future. So if you can make it, please come to that. Commissioners, do you have any announcements? Okay, seeing none, I'll check quickly with our general counsel. Do you have any?
I do not, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right. So that concludes that agenda item then. And now we're on to public comment. Is there anybody in person wishing to provide public comment? We do have one person. Yeah, you can please, you could come up to one of these microphones and press the button so people on the stream can hear you. Thank you.
I'd like to do public comment on the acquisition of PNM and New Mexico Gas Company. I live in New Mexico. My name is Leandra Schuler, Albuquerque, New Mexico. And every time I bring it up to anyone in the streets or anywhere. No one knows about it, about these acquisitions, and they seem very frustrated about it. But unfortunately, the meetings are in really tough times. Like I had to find a babysitter and somebody to pick up the children just so I could come here. No one has seemed to want this acquisition other than people who will benefit from it. And at the last meeting, that's what I witnessed as well. So I would like to really push that it's not popular with the people who will actually have to pay for the services. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anybody else here in person who would like to provide public comment? I've not seen anybody. Patrick, do we have anybody online?
Mr. Chair, we don't have anyone online for public comment.
Thank you. So the next item on our agenda is approval of prior meeting minutes. We have two sets of minutes, one for October 16, which was a regular open meeting, and one for October 23, which was a special open meeting on wildfire. Commissioners, do you have any suggested changes to those meetings, or is there a motion to approve them? I don't have any changes.
I would move to approve the minutes for October 16, 2025, the regular open meeting, and the minutes of October 23, 2025, which was a special open meeting.
Okay, and I will second. So can we take a vote on that?
Commissioner O'Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Aguilar,
Yes.
Commissioner Nyberg.
Yes,
The motion to approve the minutes for the October 16, 2025 regular open meeting and the minutes for the October 23rd, 2025 special open meeting passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next on our agenda, we have the consent action items, and we have 6 items before us. Let's see if there's any comment on these items. Not seeing any comment, so I will move to approve the consent action items.
second.
I have a motion and a second. We'll take a vote on that.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Aguilar,
Yes.
Commissioner Nyberg.
Yes,
The motion to approve the consent action items, there are 6 items on the consent agenda, passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So now we are on to the regular action items. The first item is docket number 2562 UT, and we have Mr. Russell Fisk to present this item. I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. The Commission commenced this docket on September 5th by issuing an order to show cause against SVOE LLC, which is a subscriber organization participating in the community solar program. The order to show cause concerned bid commitments made by SVOE in response to the request for proposals. Those bid commitments apply to 8 projects that were selected, and they concerned the commitment to include a state resident partner as a participant in SVOE LLC. The Commission learned through Incline Inc., the program administrator, that it had been informed by SVOE, specifically the out-of-state partner, SunVest, that the local partner, that SunVest had not been able to reach an agreement with the local partner, OE Solar, and was without a local partner, but was searching for one. Eventually, SVOE informed Incline that it had not found such a partner. And the Commission issued the order to show cause based on that record And SVOE responded that it had found a resident business partner, Somos Solar, and subsequently filed into the record its agreement with Somos Solar and the certificate that Somos has from the state, the Tax and Rev Department, showing that it is indeed a resident business. This order would dismiss the order to show cause against SVOE based on SVOE's prompt compliance with the bid commitments. It would find that there was a period of time during which SVOE was out of compliance, roughly from June to October, but that in light of the fact that SVOE took these, was quick to correct its situation and has committed to these bid commitments through mechanical completion of all 8 of the projects, that it should be dismissed without any penalties being imposed. And I have a note. I noticed an error this morning at paragraph 18 in the second sentence, which says, moreover, SVOE has shown that it was diligent in its efforts to identify a resident business partner to replace OE Solar, particularly in light of the challenging circumstances in which OE Solar found itself. That should say in which SVOE found itself. And with that, I will take any questions.
Commissioners, do you have any questions or discussion on this item?
Mr. Chair, I do have some concerns. Mr. Fisk said that it was prompt action. If I recall correctly, the action was taken after this commission was made aware of the situation, and frankly, I can surmise that it was some pretty stern language that prompted the so-called prompt action. I'm not sure it would have happened without that prompting, because in my view, they were out of compliance and jeopardized whether or not they could move forward with not only that project, but all their projects in New Mexico. And so they quickly thereafter found somebody. I'm a little, I guess in my mind, I would not find, as they requested, that they should be held absolved of their violation, and I would like to see something happen to them, but I don't know how the other commissioners feel about that, but I would be a little harsher on SVOE, because I think one of the prerequisites for the community solar program, if they're going to get the additional points awarded for the project, and that is partnering with a New Mexico business, it's incumbent upon them to have a contractual relationship with that business and see it through. And in this case, something went awry, and that New Mexico business relationship was dissolved, and they were without a New Mexico business, even though they were given points, and there were other parties in line to get those projects if they'd not been awarded those points for having a relationship with the New Mexico business. So I think it's a serious matter, and I think we need to send a message to the community solar community that if they're going to bid for a project and they have a New Mexico company lined up to get those additional points on the scorecard, that they can't just do it in name only. It has to be a serious relationship, and they have to follow through with that relationship and should not be able to just simply terminate contracts or avoid the New Mexico business after they get the contracts awarded to build a project. And I think it's a requirement that that relationship continue to exist. So for that reason, I'd like to hear from you all, but I would certainly find that they are subject to some penalty for that violation, even though it was for a period of time. I would not be as lenient as this order is on that issue. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you for your point of view, Commissioner Nybert. This is a piece of an ongoing concern that I've had with the community solar projects that, there was a RFP process that was set up, frankly, before this commission was appointed. And I've seen a few things in there that caused me concern. That the biggest one was there wasn't really an evaluation of commercial viability of any of these projects. Nobody got asked, what's it going to cost? We've got another one on the agenda about interconnection. So I view and I've said this at previous open meetings, I kind of view this first group, the short list, as a kind of a survival of the fittest type thing. And so things like they didn't actually have a firm commitment from a local business. It is a sign to me that maybe this project isn't as strong as others on the short list. I know there are some projects that have broken ground and are getting built, and so there will be options. So that's one concern, lack of just any kind of rigor around, can this project get built? The next was because of the way folks are subscribing, they might get attracted to a project because of the community benefits that were associated with the project. But then if the project doesn't get built, they just get shuffled off to another project. So more of kind of a consumer, are you signing up for what you think you're signing up for question. So those are two things that again, I've talked about at previous open meetings. I see this as an example of that. I got no problem with putting something on here that just puts SVOE on notice that this is the kind of thing that could lead to a harsher penalty. But I also kind of think we're in a moment now, especially with other things that have happened, tariffs, big, beautiful bill, that we're probably going to need to look at what's on the short list and what isn't, and not all projects are likely to move forward. So that's just from watching this for 2.5 years and seeing the kind of cases that we've had come before us. So I agree with you that it's a big deal. I just don't like killing dead things. I don't know if this thing's dead or not. So let's just put them on notice would be my suggestion.
I would also be okay with a notice. The show cause order is actually an order that I had voted no on. And the commission voted it anyways. So, now we have what we have before us. And like Commissioner O'Connell said, this is the first time. And also I understand that there was, as the record says, difficulties that proved irreconcilable between the parties, and that's not really the question before us. I think the fact is that there are sometimes going to be disagreements, and then so what do we do about it? I'd be fine not saying that SVOE was diligent here and just characterizing as they identified a resident business partner to replace OE Solar, and also okay with including stronger language. I mean, I do think this is this is an issue that should be corrected. Although, as I mentioned, when I voted no for the order, the initial order, I would rather this be corrected in the larger docket that we have ongoing. And so as a matter of first impression, I think it's more appropriate, in my opinion, to include language that warns that there could be penalties assessed or some, sort of remedy assessed, but not doing that in this order. That's kind of where I sit right now.
Mr. Chair, would the motion be to approve the entry of an order, but allow Mr. Fisk to maybe reflect a more, I'll use the word direct, maybe not be as sympathetic toward the violations, but to be a little more direct in the violations. But I guess your suggestion is they still not receive a penalty. So there'd be no monetary penalty, but that the language be a little more direct and pointed than what we see in the order that's before us. Would that be where you're
Mr.
headed
Chair-
with that?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I could go through the order right now because it would only require we could do it right now if you want me to. Or I could bring it back at a future meeting, but we could probably go through it right now and just go to the few places that would change.
Well, I was thinking maybe we could assign one of the commissioners to work with you to include that language, and that way we don't have to do it in real time. We can take a day and issue the order, maybe more, but as long as it takes, but that way we don't have to do it in real time.
Yeah, I prefer that too. And it sounds like we've got the concept here, right, is make sure the tone of it is that we think it's important that you deliver your big commitments and some form of notice that you're not being penalized now, but for them and every other community solar provider that your big commitments are important and could, failure to meet them could lead to something in the future.
Yeah,
So anyway, that's what I heard. If both of you are in agreement that you heard the same thing, then yeah, I would say I love Commissioner Nybert to work with Mr. Fisk and do the last draft.
I think we're in agreement, and people are getting points in that process for making certain representations, and those points that are awarded, because we've seen it's being very competitive, and the person that gets awarded the ability to move forward is only a point or two above the second place finisher. And if they're getting 5 points for New Mexico business, it would have changed the outcome of that particular award. So, this is not something that, the same result would have occurred if they didn't have those extra 5 points or whatever it was. And so it's pretty important. And I think we just need to send a message that where they're in that competitive market, they need to follow through not only on this, but all of the things that they say that they're getting credit for in that competitive process, and that they have to actually complete that at least through the construction phase of the project. They can't let things go. They have to fulfill their commitment. So I'd be happy to work with Mr. Fisk on that and try to tighten it up a little bit.
Okay, and that approach sounds good to me as well. And I wouldn't want to get too far into, because some of those statements, what I infer is that maybe there wasn't good faith, and I don't know that, and so I'd rather not suggest that. You know, this company has other projects as well, and to my knowledge, I don't know that this has happened with any other projects. I just want to leave room for, sometimes there will be disagreements, and I do think that the correct thing to do in this situation is if you either work with the existing partner, and if it looks like they did try, both parties, and were not able to, in the alternative, then you find another partner. And I do get what you're saying. I don't think in this situation we're really digging into whether there was good faith or not. And so I just rather stay away from that. I think
Yeah, I would agree. The record doesn't reflect lack of good faith, but it does reflect that there was not the firm commitment that was represented. And so, you know, I think it's important that parties enter into these agreements with, and know that if they're going to get awarded those points, they need to have a serious relationship that allows them to fulfill that, and I would consider it an obligation when it comes time to begin constructing and moving forward with the project. And you can't just simply get the points and then let things just evaporate. And if you're going to get the 5 points, if the first party you were talking to goes away, you better get somebody online the next day, or at least the next few days. You can't let time drag on. And like I said, in this case, it appeared to me that it was the words from this commission that prompted a prompt response after our meeting. It was not coming to us on their own volition, as I see it.
thank you for clarifying. I understand better now what you mean about the firm commitment, and I agree with that.
Mr. Chairman, can I just make a clarification? These bid commitments were made for all 8 of the projects that were selected. So this is something that applied to all 8 of their projects. It wasn't just one project. So I just wanted to make that clear.
And in that regard, this new contractual relationship deals with all 8 of the projects as well.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate the discussion on this item. I would move to adopt the order as will be revised, consistent with this discussion and issued by Commissioner Nybert.
Yeah, I'll second that.
And just a clarification, would we do that with an order that has all 3 signatures, or would it be single signature? All 3. All 3. Okay. Just
Yeah, all
clarifying.
3 orders.
Okay.
I mean, all 3 signatures,
Okay. Thank you.
just one order. All right. So did we get a second?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. We'll take a vote.
Commissioner Nybert,
Yes.
Commissioner Aguilera,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connell.
Yes.
The motion to approve the order in 2562 UT as amended through the discussion at the meeting passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners.
Okay, next we have docket number 2539 PL. And so we have Miss Alyssa Herrera Waldrop to present.
Good morning, Commissioners. This matter before you concerns staff's petition for a rulemaking to repeal and replace Rules 18.60.4 and 18.60.5 NMAC, which are rules related to pipeline safety enforcement procedures and pipeline safety excavation damage. As way of background, the Pipeline Safety Bureau was previously attached to the Transportation Division of the Commission. In the 2023 regular legislative session, the legislature passed Senate Bill 160, which transferred the Transportation Division from the Commission to the Department of Transportation, while the Pipeline Safety Bureau remained as a standalone bureau under the jurisdiction of the Commission. One purpose of the repeal and replacement of these rules is to update the references from the Transportation Division to the Pipeline Safety Bureau. Additionally, there's some updated language to reflect current policies and procedures utilized by the Bureau. And there's also some added language that provides explicit final decision-making authority to the Commission when a notice of probable violation issued to a respondent by the Pipeline Safety Bureau results in a settlement conference, alternative dispute resolution, or a hearing before the Commission. The order that's before you today issues the notice of proposed rulemaking with the attached proposed rule changes, and which sets the dates for the written comment period, the public comment hearing, and the closure of the record. With that, I will stand for any questions. Thank you.
Commissioners, any comments? Yeah.
Mr. Montoya, you might want to come up here. To show you that these programs that we attend, we actually do listen and try to learn. And one of the programs that I attended, I believe it was on Monday, was the pipeline program dealing with interference with cathodic protection as a result of the construction of new power lines, particularly the really high voltage power lines. And we know that there's a 345 kV line that's currently being constructed by NextEra Energy that will be crossing probably many pipelines, both interstate and intrastate pipelines in Lee County and probably Eddy County. SPP just approved a 745 kV line that will go into the same area. So there's going to be some massive lines that are going to be built. And the thrust of that program was that the higher voltage, particularly the 745 kV lines, the extent of the interference is much greater, like 3,000 to 5,000 feet from the transmission line. And while the lines don't energize the pipeline, it does affect the cathodic protection of the pipeline. And there have been experiences nationwide where that interference has caused some problems for the pipeline companies. And so my question really to Mr. Montoya is, should we use this opportunity, this rulemaking, to try to address some of those issues that are arising and maybe before us even right now, before we can even get this rule instituted? Would this be a proper vehicle to do it, or should we deal with that issue later?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Nybert, thank you for that information. And you're exactly right. We're very familiar with the likelihood of significant interferences with the cathodic protection that may be applied to the pipeline companies. They are also very well aware of these issues. Most of these pipelines are interstate pipelines, which we don't have jurisdiction over. There are some gathering pipelines that are coming into the purview of the PRC's jurisdiction per the gathering rule that we've discussed on several occasions. This rule applies to process enforcement actions and damage prevention. After this rulemaking, our plan is to start working on another overhaul of the pipeline safety rule, which is a different part. And so I think that would probably be more appropriate if we saw opportunity to implement more stringent rules and regulations. Currently, we incorporate by reference the federal regulations, and within there are rules and requirements that pipeline operators already have to implement to address interference or interferences from power lines, regardless of distance. They have to do some case studies. And there's a certain voltage that they have to maintain, and that's how they become aware of interferences out in the field and how they have to isolate them from the possibility of the CP jumping off the pipeline. That's the issue, right? Is when the CP jumps off the pipeline, it creates a pinhole, and now you have a void because it's protecting another asset. That's the concern and issue. And so there, like I said, there are already minimum regulations in the federal regulations that we incorporate by reference, but if there's opportunity to be more stringent, I would suggest it be in the other part that is specific to pipeline safety.
Well, and actually, as I would view the necessity for rules, it would not only affect the pipeline rules, but also the transmission line rules as well, because what the pipeline companies were saying is that these transmission lines are being built, and oftentimes they don't receive any notice, and they don't know what's going on until after they start seeing the towers go up. And at that point, they're having to try to do the necessary studies to see if their existing cathodic protection is adequate, or if they need to do some other things. And then the issue is who pays the cost of that? Does a pipeline company or does a transmission company? And there's not, what I gathered from the meeting was that there was not adequate guidance by the regulatory commissions nationwide on this issue, and that we were being encouraged. In fact, they told the commissioners, they said, we need the commissions to delve into this issue and to make sure that during the planning phase of the transmission line, that notices go out to the pipeline companies that may be affected and allow those studies to occur to make sure that the transmission lines do not create problems for the pipeline companies, or that whatever problems would occur could be addressed through maybe expanded cathodic protection of the pipeline. And so it told me that our state, and probably every other state, is deficient in its rules, not just on the pipeline side, but on the transmission side, because there seemed to be very little communication between transmission companies and pipeline companies on this issue.
And Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Nybert, if I may, NMOGA recently created a PRC committee, and hopefully that's another avenue to bridge the gap in the lack of communication. I'm guessing they're going to pay closer attention to what's going on the power side of things, and electricity and electrification and things of that nature. But that is something that's part of the leadership here at PRC has been discussing with NMOGA. So hopefully that is another avenue to help bridge that gap in the lack of communication that is concerning, obviously, for the reasons of the CP affecting the integrity of the pipeline.
Well, I appreciate your telling us that there may be other rulemaking opportunities to address that issue, but it's something that you probably ought to look at, and we probably ought to look at holistically on the transmission side as well, because I know that NextEra line is being constructed right now, and in the next 2 or 3 years, we'll have a very large high voltage or higher voltage line constructed in that same area of Lee and Eddy County. And you can't go a mile in many places without crossing multiple gathering lines and some distribution lines. And let alone the lines that aren't subject to our jurisdiction, but still the issues arise. So I'm happy with the rules as they are, and it sounds like we don't need to address that issue here, but I would hate for that ball to not be picked up elsewhere. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, I'm glad you hauled Mr. Montoya up here because I just wanted to say that part of the process that got us to today was sitting with Melissa and Jason and just talking through big picture. Hey, how does this work? How best to set things up in the future. So Mr. Montoya and whoever, may it be 20 years from now, whoever succeeds him in this job can succeed. So anyway, I just appreciated that part of this process. I wanted to thank you for that. And then just listening to your conversation, there have been points in my career where I thought I was a sacrificial anode. So I pretty much appreciated hearing that conversation.
Yeah, thank you again to the team and the work, the pre-work that went into this NOPR. I worked with my advisor and they worked with the team to try to get a few edits into the 1865 rule, and it seemed like we would need more time. I don't think they were necessarily substantive, but just kind of corrections and things that we can fix or change and talk about before we issue a final order. And so you don't see any of those changes here. And I did not want to delay this for small changes. And so I just wanted to kind of give that heads up. And thank you again to the team for working with us on this.
So can commissioners submit comments during the NOPR?
Sure, you can.
Yeah.
My things were just more tweaking and smaller edits.
Yeah, just you ask curiosity question.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, commissioners. My understanding is that we are able to make changes until the record closes. We can work with staff on that. And as long as we make those changes before the final order that adopts the rules, we can continue to make those changes. Thank you.
Mr. Chair and Mr. Montoya, when you go back to Roswell, you're going to have to own up to the fact that you're changing the definition of UFO.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Nybert, I've been having to address that for 16 years, so I'll continue to do.
That was my favorite acronym that I noticed as well. So, I will move to adopt the NOPR that has been presented to us.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? No. Okay.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Aguilera,
Yes.
Commissioner Nyberg.
Yes.
The motion to adopt the NOPR in docket 2539 PL passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have docket number 2481 UT, and we have Ms. Erica Avila Stefans to present this item.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. So Smith Bagley Broadband filed a petition seeking statewide ETC designation for the purposes of providing lifeline services. In the petition, Smith SBI Broadband explained that if statewide ETC designation was granted, they would offer service in its parent company's footprint before rolling out service to the remainder of the state at some unspecified date. The application was sent to a hearing examiner, and the hearing examiners recommended that the commission grant Smith SBI Broadband statewide ETC designation, finding that they met all the federal and state requirements for ETC designation, including demonstrating a willingness and ability to offer service throughout the designated service area within a reasonable timeline. The hearing examiners went on to recommend that SBI Broadband be required to file quarterly reports demonstrating progress towards statewide service, and then suggested that staff can petition to reduce the size of SBI broadband service area if they are not satisfied that service is being provided within a reasonable time. Now, the order before the commission grants SBI broadband ETC designation, but unlike the RD, it limits designation to the service area where SBI Broadband's parent company is currently serving, so their parent company's current footprint. Upon review of the record, SBI Broadband didn't provide any estimated timelines or plans for how they will be rolling out statewide service, other than how it intends to provide service within their parent company's footprint. And the order explains that it is the applicant's burden to demonstrate that they could provide service within a reasonable time, and that the RD shifts that burden onto staff. And accordingly, the service area is then limited to SBI Broadband's parent company's footprint. The order allows SBI Broadband to apply to extend its service area when it is prepared to demonstrate with specificity how they will intend to provide statewide service. And I stand for questions.
Yeah, thank you. And this honestly was a close one to me. I think, the RD is reasonable. I think the proposed order that goes in a slightly different direction is also reasonable. And I almost provided an alternate order, but I think the part about shifting the burden is right. And I thought that was important to note, and that's ultimately why I think this is reasonable, and appreciate the analysis that went into it, and you bringing it the way that you did. That being said, I also could vote for an order that aligns with the RD.
Mr. Chair, I support the final order as written, and it really revolves around the area that was demonstrated to be capable of being served by the company, and not allowing it to expand to the entire state without some plan of doing so, because in many instances, we see companies say they can do the whole state, and then they leave off significant portions of the state, particularly the very rural parts of the state. But the fact that they're designated for service sometimes is used as a tool for other companies when they look whether they want to expand their service area. They say, oh, somebody else is already covering that area, and they're less inclined to go there. So limiting the aerial extent of their service area, putting the burden on them to expand it, I think makes some sense, because it then shows that the rest of the state may not be served, or may only have a few competitors out there. Maybe somebody else wants to come in. So that's why I like the direction the final order took, as opposed to the recommended decision that covered the whole state.
I move for adoption of the final order that was proposed.
Second.
We'll take a vote.
Commissioner Nyberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Aguilera,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connell.
Yes.
The motion to approve the order as written in 2481 UT passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Also meant to say thank you for the memo that was provided for this item. Okay, so now we're on to Mr. Kevin Getgo to discuss docket number 2510 UT.
Good morning, Commissioners. As you said, this is docket 25-00010 UT, which is the formal complaint of the Town of Clayton and Seasol Power, LLC, against Public Service Company of New Mexico. The complaint was originally filed in order to answer the question of how to assign increased transmission wheeling fees that would be charged by Tri-State to PNM in order to accommodate the interconnection of the Gonzo Sol project to PNM's Clayton distribution system. There was a bench request filed by the commission. PNM replied to that bench request. There was then a joint reply of the Town of Clayton and Seasol Power, the complainants. There was a motion to strike that reply filed by PNM and a joint response of the complainants to that motion to strike. So what is before you is a draft order that does two things. First, it addresses PNM's motion to strike the joint reply of the Town of Clayton and Seasol Power. With respect to that, it recognizes that the commission's bench request had defined interveners as parties and parties as interveners, and it follows that the complainants were given a right to reply. Second, the order orders additional responses from PNM and the complainants. The order as drafted clarifies the commission's understanding of the facts of this matter as established in the filings that have been made thus far. And it expresses the commission's understanding that the type and form of transmission service between Tri-State and PNM does not affect the legal determination of the proper assignment of the increased transmission wheeling fees. Similarly, it expresses an understanding that the proper assignment of increased transmission wheeling fees would not be affected by whether a battery energy storage system is connected to PNM's Clayton distribution system. Therefore, the order clarifies the commission's understanding of the central legal questions that are before the commission and that need to be answered in order to establish the proper assignment of the increased transmission wheeling fees. With respect to that, the order therefore requires responses and replies that are narrowly focused to the legal questions at the heart of this matter and affords both the complainants and PNM the opportunity to assert that there are other legal questions or questions of material fact that the commission must adjudicate. With that summary to provide context for the audience, I stand for questions.
Commissioners, do you have any discussion that you'd like to provide?
Mr. Chair, I have a lot of discussion because this particular situation highlights hopefully a unique but unfortunate situation that we find ourselves in with respect to community solar. The issue of community solar was hotly debated in the legislature, and The concerns that I have really are highlighted by this particular fact situation. You have a 5 megawatt community solar facility that is wanting to be located in Clayton, New Mexico on the PNM system. PNM does not have any transmission lines to Clayton, New Mexico. It has to pay Tri-State to utilize its lines to get energy to Clayton, New Mexico to service its customers there. Clayton, New Mexico, on an average day, demands 1.3 megawatts of energy. Am I approximately correct on that?
The record says that it varies between a 1 megawatt minimum and a 3.5 megawatt maximum.
Okay, so something less than 5 megawatts is demanded by the PNM customers in Clayton, New Mexico. So you have the situation where the community solar facility will produce more energy than what Clayton, New Mexico, the customers in Clayton, New Mexico on the PNM system demand. And one of the issues that was teed up during the legislative session was the interconnection. And you couldn't co-locate community solar facilities because the utilities were concerned about overloading its system or had some concerns with too much power at one location versus another. But this whole thing in Clayton, New Mexico shows a real concern. More power being generated than what can be accepted by the load of PNM in Clayton, New Mexico, which means the excess power is going to have to be transmitted over a non-PNM line to get to other loads that PNM has, probably in the Santa Fe, Las Vegas, Albuquerque area. And with that, as I understand the record, Tri-State wants to be compensated for that. So it brings forth a real dilemma. I would submit that it's really a failure of the system, maybe the statutes, maybe the rules, maybe the oversight by incline, maybe an oversight by Seesaw, but there should never have been a community solar facility located in Clayton, New Mexico. This fact situation really should not exist, and it should have been caught at some point. But anyway, the rules are what they are, and obviously we're having to deal with it. But it brings forth some unique issues. And the issue really for me is who's going to pay to provide that power to PNM customers? And the developer of the solar facility wants all those costs that Tri-State wants to charge to be borne by the ratepayers on the PNM system. And I have a concern with that. And so I think we need to get to the legal genesis of what legally this commission can look at and can do, cannot do, and is there any legal basis to shift those costs to the developer and to those people who are investing in the community solar, or are the PNM ratepayers going to have to pay for energy cost, albeit at in essence what I'd consider retail rates, to bring down across a line where PNM's having to pay more money to use that line to get the energy to the demand loads in Santa Fe and Albuquerque. And also you're going to have some line loss between Clayton and wherever P&M can accept it. Probably somewhere closer to Las Vegas or Santa Fe. So those are the issues that we're having to wrestle with on this. And so I think it's appropriate for us to ask the questions that are teed up. Hopefully counsel for both CSOL and P&M will have additional legal questions that they want explored and submit to us the basis of their legal arguments. And we can then maybe delve more deeply into the legal constraints that we find ourselves under in dealing with this issue. But personally, I think that this factual situation is a problem, and hopefully the community solar rules will prohibit, if it can exist elsewhere in the state, will prohibit this situation from ever occurring. Those would be my comments, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the concern that I have with this proceeding is that in this case, I don't see the utility really trying to figure out what the best solution would be for ratepayers. I think that there's an opportunity here to do something, I think, that could be more cost effective for all ratepayers. And P&M hasn't studied this case in such a way to be able to identify those solutions. And so that's what I want to encourage the utility to do by asking these questions. I would contest that there should never have been a community solar project in Clayton. First, because the legislature decided that New Mexicans should have access, and a large part of those low-income customers should have access to community solar. And the other part of it is, Mr. Getko, am I remembering correctly that that Palo Verde is one of the network resources?
Yes.
Yeah. So we're talking about a generator that is, we went to go visit it. It's out of Phoenix, going towards California. There's transmission that's being paid for there to get that energy to serve the load. And so I think that if the utility were to think about this more creatively and really just think about what is best for ratepayers, I also think that there's an opportunity for P&M to potentially invest in battery energy storage, something that they could earn a rate of return on. They're not going that far. They're only going as far as you're citing yourself here. So we are going to take the easiest way to get transmission and then assign you those costs. Anyway, that's where I'm coming from is, just want to encourage and challenge P&M here to think creatively, because I think there could be cost-effective solutions that are potentially better than what those customers in Clayton and around the state, other customers that are currently paying for the transmission service, that is better for them. So that's what I'm kind of trying to draw out of the utility here with these questions.
Yeah, I'd just like to follow up on both of those. First, P&M's not here. Hopefully they're listening, but I wanted to express some frustration with just how they chose to approach this. Because, when I read the law, this is a a question that we're biased to try to solve. So then when we ask, well, how would this work if it was a P&M resource? And the response we got back was, we wouldn't do that. Doesn't help us understand the issues and help us try to craft what's the best solution within the law that we're trying to implement. And then, I got no problem with asking more parties, more questions. I think if you look through the record of the rulemaking, this transmission element of the community solar law is one of the more controversial, and many pages and many appeals and those type of things have been already filed on this issue. So we'll see if we get something that motivates me to upset the apple cart, because again, the law just biases me to implement community solar in the best way possible. And so, and then I also took this as, you're right, this is a unique thing. And and I appreciate the chair's analogy too. I also thought it's an opportunity to learn, so again, P&M's approach to this, answering these questions, I don't think was in the spirit of what they were asked for. And it also didn't align with the fact that, hey, we're all charged with following the law. So anyway, I'm in favor of taking this next step. Be fascinated to see what happens. P&M and utilities, please put yourself in the shoes of, let's try to implement this law as best possible. So just dodging questions because you found a loophole in the question isn't helpful.
I want to note the idea of the battery energy storage system as a potential solution. It could be a solution. Maybe it's more expensive. I don't know, but I do want to thank staff who brought that idea to us, and that's something that caught my attention, and that's why I'm interested in seeing whether it could be a potential solution. But just wanted to to include that shout out there. So thank you for doing that.
Mr. Chair, are you ready for a motion?
Yes.
I move that we approve the order denying motion to strike joint reply and require additional response as submitted to us by Mr. Gedko.
I'll second. Any discussion? No.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Aguilar,
Yes.
Commissioner Nyberg.
Yes.
The motion to approve the order as presented in 2510 UT passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
And thank you, Mr. Gedko, who's been putting a lot of thought and effort into this case. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so now we're on to our discussion and potential action items, and we have Mackley Kirol, advisor to Commissioner O'Connell, to talk about the wildfire preparedness, docket number 22-154.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. For this discussion and potential action item, I'd first like to give the public a brief overview of this item. This item is a dual follow-up to our last wildfire workshop and the Senate Memorial 2 Working Group, which formally ended on November 1st. For context and recap, the study group brought together state agencies, IOUs, co-ops, and trade associations to study, develop, and make recommendations to address wildfire mitigation and preparedness. After the last workshop, it was requested to ask the study group before we disbanded to send their thoughts and next steps on how we could keep the momentum going as a commission. So what you have in front of you is a short summary of the responses I received from the insurance stakeholders, the IOUs, and Firescape, representing the technology and PSP perspective. And based on those responses, I'll share with you 4 possible next steps that we can take. I also welcome direction from the commission on these options. So first option is for the commission to consider continuation of Senate Memorial 2 collaboration, but this time towards a 2026 bill. The idea here is to use the IOU's draft bill that they had mentioned at the last workshop as a starting point. We get our legislative director, interested members of Senate Memorial 2 together to review and revise the bill and report back here to the commission. A pro here is that the existence of a draft bill already means that we have a degree of real consensus. And even though the 2026 session is short, on the worst end, whatever we work on, we could build for 2027. And the con here is that, again, it's a short session, so time is of the essence. A second option is to start a commission-led PSP working group so we could expand on PSP policy options via rulemaking. We could do this to expand on the type of PSPS techniques. We could also set customer protections protocols for medically vulnerable communities, and we could include protocols for cross-agency communication. A pro here is that we also wouldn't be starting from scratch because we have the curtailment of service rule 560F in the books, and we have a substantial record from the workshops. A con here is that the rulemaking fatigue is real for everybody. A third option is to create a policy paper so that we could file it into this docket. It's within the commission. It's non-binding but persuasive, and we just keep it there. It sets our statement for future actions. A con here is that things could get lost in the process and it could get a lot of dust in it. And then a fourth option was creating a straw man proposal. This is basically like another rulemaking that tackles everything. It addresses wildfire mitigation elements, metrics, audits, veg management standards, and liability. As this is just a discussion and potential action items, I don't want to say any of these options they're not mutually exclusive. So I'm happy to answer any questions. And like I said, I welcome high-level direction on these potential items.
Well, thank you. Certainly interested to see what the other commissioners think here. And, I think the first option of, continuing to collaborate with the Senate Memorial 2 and having some involvement in the bill is a good option. I mean, as I've mentioned before, I think when it comes to policy, the state law that applies to the utilities, I don't see that as my job. I think I see that as the legislature's job. And I think there are some things about liability that, I would rather take a little bit of a backseat on and then see what direction we get from the legislature and, implement that direction. Also recognize that for the legislature, maybe that's not the most helpful because they probably want to hear from us and what we think. And so the recommendation to continue to collaborate and work toward a bill works for me. There might be some areas where I might suggest that, well, that's just, one commissioner. So we'll see what the other two commissioners say, but where I might suggest maybe we just are present and aware of what is going on, but not necessarily advocating.
Yeah, thank you, Meckley, and thanks for the memo and leading those workshops. Just feedback that I get when we go to places like we did at Seattle is other folks are watching, and the workshops have been very valuable, not just internally, but externally. So just wanted to share that with you. And it's funny because I don't know if you intended it this way, but as I work myself down your list of options, number one is the thing I would jump on with a heck yes, and then number four is like, let's think about it. So I don't know if you put them in that order or not, but that's how they sifted out for me. And really the dividing line between the spectrum is what Commissioner Aguilera just said. Certainly a lot of this stuff is within our authority to write the rules, and the world would be better off if we had more clarity than we do on some things. Like, I think utilities haven't been consistent in things like amending their curtailment service rules. Some have, some haven't, in response to plan, they all have plans for PSP, who has filed amendments to their curtailment rules. Last time I checked, it was only one utility, right? So just a little bit more guidance, clarity on those type of things, totally we can do, would be worth it. Where I start to get worried is getting in front of legislation. So the first thing, I am a firm believer we need legislation, right? Because there are some big items that I don't think are our choices to make it be better for the elected state legislature to deal with it. And it's what Mr. Aguilera has already mentioned, liability, and then liability impacts insurance. We only regulate the utilities. The insurance has come in and told us it's the whole Megillah as far as what gets affected by wildfire. So we're not the body, I think, to think that holistically about that. And then I'll throw one more on the list of things that are showing up around the country is, the focus here has been on utility role in mitigating the risk of wildfire. Absolutely, that's our job. Another thing came through in the workshop is wildfire is going to happen even if utilities are perfect, right? So then you get to how do you rebuild this system? And so ideas, I'm not saying this is the right solution, but ideas that are showing up around the country are securitization, right? So that has to be legislation. We can't do securitization without legislation. So anyway, let's continue to push forward, working with folks however best we can on legislation. Get a bill as soon as we can is my idea. How we sift through the gradations that Meckley has offered us today. Sorry, I don't have a let's do it this way answer. So.
I would echo what Commissioner O'Connell just said 24 hours ago. At NARUC, there was a discussion on this very topic, and Mackley, just to let you know, some of the people on that panel express their appreciation for the work you've done here in New Mexico, and so it is noticed and recognized. I would say that I like your recommendation with respect to number one, if the other parties are interested in continuing. And if they are in agreement, then you have a leg up on legislation because you're going to need a message from the governor, and you have one of her cabinet secretaries who has easy access to the governor involved in that group. So that might help. I too really think that this is an issue that is much broader than just what we do here. And we should receive some direction from the legislature before crafting rules and things like that. So I think it's important for us to try to encourage the lawmakers to tackle some of these issues, and then we can respond to whatever they think should be in our purview after that fact. The number 3 item, the policy paper, I think if you think that's important, I think we could come up with something and provide some guidance on some issues, and that could be independent of what we're doing on number 1. So I would support having some policy paper on the issues and maybe express how we see things working out. And frankly, drawing upon the work that your work group's already come up with would be probably a majority of that policy paper. So I see 1 and 3 going hand in hand. I'd be less supportive right now of doing the rulemaking and maybe number 4, the straw proposal rule. I think I'd wait until after we see what happens legislatively, and maybe even after, if we send out a policy paper, seeing what feedback we get on that. So I like 1 and 3 for my own opinion, and appreciate all the hard work that you and your fellow work group put in, not only once, not only twice, not only 3 times, but you had at least 4 work group meetings that were open to the public. You had many meetings that led up to each of those work group meetings. A tremendous amount of time and energy was expended, and your efforts and those who worked on those issues, it's greatly appreciated. And I think it's very important that we try to tackle some of these issues. I would tell the legislature it's very important for them to tackle these larger issues that should be before them, because it's not just the utilities that are involved in the issue of wildfire. Every citizen in parts of our state, whether they're burning trash or welding a fence or pulling over on the side of the road, all those can be sources of ignition. And those fires, once started, can be catastrophic, as we've seen. So it's an issue that's much bigger than just the public utilities, and the legislature needs to provide some direction and some guidance on what the public policy for the state should be in those issues. And again, I express my appreciation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioners, for the kind words. If I may, talk about option 1, because there seems to be some form of consensus here. I just came back from the Western State Commissioners Workshop on wildfires with the staff. And it was led by the California PUC and the Oregon PUC. And in both those situations, they said when legislation got made, it was the utilities that brought it up, and they did take a back seat. So I agree with that. Like, it's sort of us not taking a complete back seat, but at least us still being in the room for the conversation. So I believe this is something we can approach. And yes, like, these options aren't mutually exclusive. So like you said, Commissioner Nyberg, 1 and 3 do go together. And good thing we have a DOE wildfire fellow. So not to like volunteer her to do this, but this is something that could go a long way, having a policy paper. So thank you, commissioners.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that could be a good, I mean, it could also be helpful for the legislature, depending on when we can have it finished, because it might, provide some of our guidance. And I can't be left out in singing the praises of your leadership on this. I also had people at NARUC that I didn't know come up to me and thank me for really, they should be thanking you all. But for the work that the agency is doing on wildfire. So I think we all heard a common message, and it was very positive.
Thank you, commissioners. Appreciate that.
Yeah, so it sounds like do number 1, right? And then I was going to ask if you could just put a little more flesh on the bone for number 2, because if that is really a lightweight tweak to our rule that just includes in the curtailment plan, PSP plan, that's possible, but I haven't looked at it. So knowing what analyze it. If we're going to open that door, should it be much wider open than that? So if you could just play with the rule and see what you think would need to be done or addressed. And if it's more than just clarifying how to handle a PSP plan, then maybe think about it again. But if it's a real lightweight rulemaking, maybe we pursue that. But until see what it looks like, hard for me to say go forth on that because of not just fatigue, but if it opens up a broader scope, I really do want some guidance from legislature on that. And your point on utilities lead these bill drafting efforts. For me, the role I see for us is the same as for anybody who's drafting legislation is we'll help you draft it so that it can have the right impact, that, you can get to the result you want using the laws and the processes that guide how we work, right? So sometimes it's a rulemaking, sometimes it's a law, sometimes it's a tariff filing, you know, all that kind of stuff. Those are the kind of things we want to be involved in. And then if we are, when we get to legislature, whoever's sponsoring the bill is going to get an FIR from us that says, yeah, this is a great bill, please pass it, right? So I don't know if we'd ever go that far, but at least we wouldn't be sinking it inadvertently or vertently. So.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, I agree. I'll look into number 2.
And then one last thing, since I have you here, Erica, the world's looking for our next installment on economic development.
Are you looking for any action from us? I don't think so, right? I think formal action is what I mean.
No formal action, but to get a working group together, we could do that orally, right, Erica? Like under.
Yes, we could do an oral motion or order, and then we can vote on that, and then I could draft that subsequently.
It sounds like the action there is insinuate yourself in a process that's been going on without us. Is that fair?
That is fair, yes, because yes, the IOUs do have the draft bill and we weren't part of that conversation. So that could be a little sticky situation.
So what is the suggestion there then with respect to the working group?
For me, the question is, what should the commission do to make it clear that it would benefit the assembly if Mac Lee and his team of lawyers and DOE fellows could help with drafting this legislation that people are targeting for 2026? Is it just, we had that discussion, the utilities are listening, hopefully they heard it, or do we need to order something?
Right. And so that's a little different. That was, I guess that's what I wanted to clarify. It's different than what was in here, right? And so would that include people external to the PRC?
Yeah, it would include, if anything, members of the Senate Memorial 2 group.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, it seems to me that what we ought to do is request Mr. Carroll to move forward on items 1 and 3. And I guess empower him to continue that work that has begun. Of course, it's dependent upon the other parties buying into that, but I think he would have our approval to move forward to keep that working group as a working group, even though it wouldn't be under Senate Memorial 2, it would be under just a desire of this commission to continue that process moving forward. Is that the motion you were looking for?
Yeah, that's the motion I'm looking for.
And it's made. I will make that motion. Asking Mr. Carroll to move forward on items 1 and 3, and if the other agencies are so inclined to be involved, continue the work group toward the objectives that are stated.
Yeah, I'll second that, because the outcome was make progress, right? Not succeed. And so it could be, you can keep coming back with updates on progress if you find impediments to progress that we can help you with. You can come back with that. But anyway, what you got, I think, with this motion is prioritization of 1 and 3, and then since you work for me, I'm going to push you on 2. So.
All right. So we have a motion and a second, and we've had some discussion. Any further discussion? Okay, I think we're ready for a vote then.
Commissioner Nyberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Aguilar?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connell?
Yes.
So the motion to direct Mr. Carroll to continue with the collaboration on Senate Memorial 2, and then also to work on a commission policy paper. Passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
All right. So next on the agenda, we have communications with Chief of Staff. I'll turn it over to our Chief of Staff.
Good morning, commissioners. So lots happening at the PRC. Sometimes I sound like a broken record because Spiridion, AKA our e-docket replacement, tends to be swallowing more and more of our time these days, but that's because we're nearing the end. The target being the middle of January for a go live date. In between now and then, there's a lot of work to do. As I said last time, we're entering user acceptance testing, which is going to be a series of 2-3 week, roughly 3 week. I'm going to call them sprints, although the team that's dealing with Spiridion will tell me that's not the right term. But essentially, we'll have 3 weeks in December, starting December 1st, and then a break, and then 2 weeks in January, where there will be intensive user testing. I said last time, trying to break the system. There will be essentially a war room set up in our Albuquerque office where we will have Spiridion on site along with our PM team, our project management team, and IT to help external users who have some have volunteered, some were asking for volunteers to come in and test the system. We'll also be robustly testing it with internal folks. So commissioners, if you have people in particular that you want to try to test the system, especially internally, let me know. We can include them. It is going to be a bit of a time commitment because we're going to need that commitment to test the system there will be a schedule, but essentially very much like we did over the summer, which is just like get in the system and work on it for a chunk of hours at a time. So that's happening starting December 1st. Also, as you said, Mr. Chair, December 1st marks our 3rd annual seminar. I just wanted to add to that, not only to reinforce it for everybody, but also to mention that it's free. So come enjoy the conversation. There will be snacks and coffee there. So if that's a draw, there's free cookies. And it will get all 12 credit hours that attorneys need. And the ethics usually also count for engineers. Next, looking further into December, we have our winter all hands meeting, December 19th. As you may know, that means that the 3rd annual PRC Bake Off will be starting here shortly. I have just confirmed that it looks like we will start on the 25th. So our next open meeting will also be the kickoff for the PRC Bake Off. So even if you don't really care about competition, but who doesn't love a little bit of competition, come enjoy our baked goods and bring things that make you happy to bake. Looking a little closer in time, Monday, we have a day over at the Roundhouse. In the morning, we will be in front of the Water and Natural Resource Committee talking about community solar and generally about PRC updates. Particularly, we'll be talking about the PRC legislation that we're hoping to have heard in this next 30-day session. And then in the afternoon, we will be in front of the Legislative Finance Committee for a hearing on our 2027 fiscal year 2027 budget request, which will include that request for the GROW funding to fund our internal community solar bureau. As if that's not enough, I'm happy to stand for any other questions that you might have or questions on these issues.
Just circling back to your first one, Spiridion, you probably answers is yes, but is somebody from the eDocket Digest team involved? Because they're hitting, they use that resource. Okay. I'm seeing hands in the back of the room, so yes.
Awesome. Off the top of my head, Commissioner, I couldn't remember, but I'm glad hands shot up back there to answer that question.
Thank you. I don't have any comments, just, really appreciate the work that that, happens under your direction, and also really looking forward to the CLE event. So the commissioners were each tasked with putting together a panel for that event. And so we'll be there and we'll be doing that, and we'll have good people come. And so really a good place to come learn.
Not me, I'm looking forward to Bake Off.
All right, thank you. Okay, communications with commissioners. Either of you want to get us started?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you all know, the last three or 4 days, we've been in Seattle at the NARUC meetings, and they went well. Learned a lot, and appreciate the education programs that they put on, help us better understand some of the work that's being done elsewhere, and help me navigate some of the issues that we do here. Basically, I'm kind of glad that the year's winding down. It's been a whirlwind of education, and I feel like I've been an anchor on you guys. You're trying to pull me along, but hopefully I'll get all this under my belt and be a better contributor next year. I would say that coming up, I will be going to the Energy Council meetings in the first week of December, and that's in Mississippi. And I think with that may conclude my travels for the year. At least I'm hopeful that will conclude it. It's been a whirlwind the last few weeks, and we'll be look forward to staying at home maybe a little more often. But that's what's on my plate in the upcoming 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, it's similarly situated. I'm happy to be home. Was in Little Rock for quite a bit 2 weeks ago, and then Seattle this week, and Commissioner Nybert was there with me in Little Rock. And so that kind of wrapped up the last voting meeting of the RSC, unless we have an emergency meeting under my tenure of being president of the Regional State Committee. And so there was a lot of speeches held about that. Generally, they were happy that I'm done. And then, but I just wanted to point out that the board also recognized Agatha Malik, who is our cost allocation working group member from the PRC. She got thrust into not just a new job, but being chair of COG, because that came along with me being president of RSC, and our Southwest Power Pool thanked her for her efforts, and I joined them in thinking that. And so going forward, Commissioner Nybert will be our representative on the Regional State Committee. If he sticks around long enough, he too could be president, I'm sure, but not sure I'd recommend that. But Agatha's going to remain with that group for some continuity, and she's really built up a good body of work. But, as you know, Commissioner Aguilera, that regional work is increasing, not abating. So SPP's always been there. I think we're finally in a good space of understanding what we're doing, how we can make an impact, have a great support for commissioners from Agatha, but we're going to need to start building that up for all of our regional market work. And I know you have been working diligently on the stuff out west. I promise I will take up some more duty. I won't just quit SPP and then laugh at you as you work too hard. So.
Yeah, so as we talked about a little bit at the last open meeting, we can divvy up committees and the team members that will be working with us on those committees. And we can do that, I guess. We have an open meeting. I don't know if it's the last one, but maybe the one that's around the middle of December. And that way we can start fresh for the new year. I also have one last trip coming up for, well, work trip. I'll be going to the Northwestern Electricity Dialogue in Utah. And so that's, I know it starts the Thursday after Thanksgiving. So I think that's the first week of December. So I'll be there, and that's a 2-day thing. That's all I have on my calendar. So it feels good to be home for a while. Any further discussion or business? Okay. There is actually one other thing that I wanted to mention that Alejandro reminded me of, and I asked him to because I knew I would forget. With respect to potentially intervening and in the future, maybe even submitting comments to FERC dockets, or I guess it could also be like DOE items. They occasionally open up comment periods. Wanted to talk about intervening in the ANOPR that was initiated by DOE and is with FERC now on interconnecting large loads to the transmission system. So Aaron has been working on this and has already drafted just like what they call a dockless motion to intervene. So it's just an intervention, does not express a position. And that's something that we could do in order to preserve our right to comment or respond or appeal. And if we had certain interests that we cared about that we wanted to protect. The other thing that we could do if we wanted is submit comments. And I think that probably would start with a recommendation from our team working on this in case there is anything that we comment on. As you might know that the Electricity Committee issued a resolution on the ANOPR, and I heard kind of different things from reading the press on that. I thought it was fairly neutral on the ANOPR, but also just expressing a little bit of caution in terms of the responsibilities that belong to states as opposed to FERC. So anyway, I think the question for you, I think for now, is whether you are okay intervening in the docket. And then as we continue to gain more experience, I think we should also have a fixed process where we can intervene in dockets, because many of these situations will not allow us enough time to talk about the issue at an open meeting. And because they come up quickly, a lot of the FERC dockets, for example, have a 21-day comment period. And if we don't know about it in that first week, we might miss the comment period. And so designing a process that allows us to intervene in dockets that might affect our interests, both at FERC and DOE and potentially other places as well. And then also, so that's just an intervention, but also when we want to submit comments and take a position, then also having a process to be able to do that.
Yeah, I'm in favor with intervening on this one because there's like two issues there. One's the technical issue, and broadly sounds like a good idea to me. But the other is just kind of the more jurisdictional issue, and that's what conversations have been on email among commissioners on the RSC and what we heard at NARUC this week. So yeah, let's do this dockless intervention just so we have opportunity. And then I like that when you were saying we need to figure out how to do this across more venues than just FERC also point out that when Commissioner Nybert and I were in Little Rock 2 weeks ago, there is a technical process moving through NERC. And so Agata Malik has taken the step of making us registered users on the system, because we were given the heads up that that could take a couple weeks just to get established, and she's done that. But so whether that was that one maybe didn't feel like something we would weigh in on or not, but definitely wanted the opportunity to be able to weigh in on what's going on there now and potentially in the future. So we've got more avenues than just FERC that maybe New Mexico would benefit from PRC voice on the table.
So I'm not hearing any opposition to that idea of intervening. Want to check with my counsel here to see if they're looking for any kind of formal action.
No.
Okay. Then we'll go ahead and do that, submit a doc list motion to intervene, and we'll hear from our counsel to see if there are comments that they recommend we submit, or maybe we don't submit any comments at all. So I think that's still pending. And so I think also, because the comments will be due before the comment deadline, we might be in a situation, this is one of those situations, I guess, where we won't have an open meeting and won't be able to vote on them. And so I'm happy to take the lead. I can also submit comments on just my behalf, but I think if we submit comments, they're more powerful if they come from the entire commission. Happy to take the lead on that, and the council can work with you all individually, and then maybe we can submit a common position on that. So I want to see what you think about that.
Mr. Chair, it seems to me that the chair ought to probably take the lead on those things, and to the extent that you need Office of General Counsel to discuss those issues with the other commissioners, that's fine. But I think the chair ought to take the lead and sign as chair of the commission, and do whatever it is you believe is in the best interest of the agency.
Okay, and for a lot of, I think on whatever comments we submit, we probably would be in agreement. But what I want to make sure is, and my I guess promise is to consider whether I would anticipate any opposition, because I would want any comments that are submitted to really reflect the view of the entire commission and not just two commissioners. And so that's something that's important to me. And so I think if I ever noticed something, or if staff becomes aware that there might be some opposition, then I think that kind of situation should, either we don't submit comments or it comes to a vote, and then we decide that way. Okay.
Just to clarify, Mr. Chair, if that were to be the case, and it did require a vote, then we would need to bring that back.
Yes.
In an open meeting, special open meeting, if it didn't, if the timing wasn't correct.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Well, I think we're done with our business for today. Thank you for the discussion. Thank you all for coming. And we are adjourned.